Welcome back to the Save the Constitution series, produced by Robert Welch University. We begin our study of the Constitution with the legislative branch. The legislative branch is responsible for making laws. Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution reads, "All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives." The Constitution sets forth some basic rules to govern the proceedings of Congress. Each House shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each House may provide. Article 1, Section 5. To do the business of each House of Congress, they needed a majority of the members of a given House. If members were not present, their respective Houses could allow a few of their members to adjourn and compel them to attend or face the consequences. This would allow the Congress to function smoothly. Each House may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. Each House shall keep a journal of its proceedings and from time to time publish the same, excepting such parts as may in their judgment require secrecy. And the yeas and nays of the members of either House on any question shall, at the desire of 1/5 of those present, be entered on the journal. Article 1, Section 5. These journals are intended to allow those voting for representatives or senators to evaluate the job their representatives are doing. Neither House, during the session of Congress, shall, without the consent of the other, adjourn for more than 3 days, nor to any other place than that in which the two Houses shall be sitting. Article 1, Section 5. Because the various powers of Congress depend upon the rulings of both Houses, for the most part, it is important that they are working at the same time to avoid excessive delays in the functions of government. Section 6 of Article 1 sets forth further information. The senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services, to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. What if they pass a law to give themselves excessive salaries or a law that is beneficial to their own cause? It is the responsibility of their constituents to monitor their behavior and let them know what they think of the job they're doing. If they do not meet the desired standards of their constituents, they can be voted out of office. They, the members of Congress, shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective Houses and in going to and returning from the same. And for any speech or debate in either House, they shall not be questioned in any other place. Article 1, Section 6. Joseph Andrews, the author of A Guide for Learning and Teaching the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, points out that it was common for the kings of England to arrest representatives that opposed them, preventing their voices from being heard by their fellow representatives and their votes from being cast. No senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States, which shall have been created, or the emoluments whereof shall have been increased during such time. And no person holding any office under the United States shall be a member of either House during his continuance in office. Article 1, Section 6. What this is telling us is that the members of Congress cannot create offices they will fill themselves, and that they cannot increase the salary of an office that already exists and then take the office themselves. Then the next clause is even more blunt. No one holding any office under the federal government can be a representative or senator. This is important because if they can accept another office under the federal government, there will be a division of loyalties. Under the original Constitution, the members of the House respond to the people, and the members of the Senate to their respective state legislatures. These are meant to be their sole and unique loyalties. Holding a loyalty to the federal government because of another position in it would compromise their ability to properly represent their constituents. Article 1, Section 8 lays out the powers to be held by the Congress. It begins as follows. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Joseph Andrews explains what these terms mean. An excise is a tax paid by the individual that produces a good. An impost is paid by the one importing a good. Duties are taxes on imports or exports. Let's look at the rest of the powers that Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives to Congress. The Congress, more specifically the House, has the unique authority to generate bills of revenue, laws for taxes. Therefore, the obligation to pay the debts is best housed here. The Congress is responsible for the common defense and general welfare of the United States by using its given powers. James Madison provided us with a warning if we believe Congress can do anything for the general welfare. When speaking to the United States Congress, he argued, if Congress can apply money indefinitely to the general welfare and are the sole and supreme judges of the general welfare, they may take the care of religion into their own hands. They may take into their own hands the education of children, establishing in like manner schools throughout the Union. They may undertake the regulation of all roads other than post roads. In short, everything from the highest object of state legislation down to the most minute object of policy would be thrown under the power of Congress. For every object I have mentioned would admit the application of money and might be called, if Congress pleased, provisions for the general welfare. Do any of these things sound familiar? Congress can borrow money on the credit of the United States. Article 1, Section 8. Because the Congress is responsible for the debt of the United States, it also stands to reason that it will be the one generating that debt. Congress may regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. James Madison wrote, "A very material object of this power was the relief of the states which import and export through other states, from the improper contributions levied on them by the latter. Were these at liberty to regulate the trade between state and state, it must be foreseen that ways would be found out to load the articles of import and export during the passage through their jurisdiction with duties which would fall on the makers of the latter and the consumers of the former. We may be assured by past experience that such a practice would be introduced by future contrivances, and both by that and a common knowledge of human affairs that it would nourish unceasing animosities and not improbably terminate in serious interruptions of the public tranquility. To prevent this fighting between states, Congress has the power to regulate commerce between them. Congress has the power to establish an uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. Article 1, Section 8. James Madison explains, "The power of establishing uniform laws of bankruptcy is so intimately connected with the regulation of commerce and will prevent so many frauds where the parties or their property may lie or be removed into different states that the expediency of it seems not likely to be drawn into question. Congress is responsible to coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States." Article 1, Section 8. James Madison wrote, "It must be seen at once that the proposed uniformity in the value of the current coin might be destroyed by subjecting that of foreign coin to the different regulations of the different states. The punishment of counterfeiting the public securities, as well as the current coin, is submitted, of course, to that authority, which is to secure the value of both. Congress possesses the power to establish post offices and post roads. Article 1, Section 8. Because mail crosses state boundaries, it makes sense that its regulation is under the federal government. Congress may promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Article 1, Section 8. James Madison argued, "The utility of this power will scarcely be questioned. The copyright of authors has been solemnly adjudged in Great Britain to be a right of common law. The right to useful inventions seems with equal reason to belong to the inventors. The public good fully coincides in both cases with the claims of individuals." The Congress can constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Article 1, Section 8. What this means, in other words, is to make federal courts. The Congress has the ability to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. Article 1, Section 8. Author Cleon Skousen points out that because the high seas do not belong to any state, it fits that the punishment of such crimes is carried out by the federal government. The law of nations is defined by Joseph Andrews. A general law of ethics between nations based on the philosophies of the 17th century European statesmen Pufendorf, Vattel, and Grotius. Obeyed out of honor and respect, it is not enforced. Speaking of the situation under the Articles of Confederation, James Madison wrote, "These Articles of Confederation contain no provision for the case of offenses against the law of nations, and consequently leave it in the power of any indiscreet member, state, to embroil the Confederacy with foreign nations. This could lead to war due to the actions of one state, a situation the founders desired to avoid. Congress has the power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Article 1, Section 8. This means the President cannot declare war. Joseph Andrews explains that letters of marque and reprisal are permissions given by one nation which allow their citizens to rob at sea other nations. Congress has the power to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Article 1, Section 8. Alexander Hamilton wrote, "The legislature of the United States will be obliged by this provision once at least in every 2 years to deliberate upon the propriety of keeping a military force on foot, active duty, to come to a new resolution on the point, and to declare their sense of the matter by a formal vote in the face of their constituents." Concerning the defense of our country, Congress has the power to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states, respectively, the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Article 1, Section 8. Another role of the Congress is to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Article 1, Section 8. The responsibility of the Congress is to make the laws. No other branch has this authority. The purpose of the founders in laying out such a specific list of powers can also be clearly seen in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. In other words, if the Constitution does not clearly give the legislative branch power to make a particular law, it cannot do it. Congress also has the power of impeachment. The House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment. Article 1, Section 2. What does impeachment mean? Impeachment is an accusation or charge brought against a public officer for maladministration in his office. Article 2, Section 4 adds further clarification. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. Article 1, Section 3. Treason is defined in Article 3, Section 3. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. The Congress shall have power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. What this means is that the punishment for treason can consist of the loss of property and the rights to any inheritance. But this applies only to the individual who commits treason, not to his or her descendants. Lastly, we examine one of the most important constitutional powers, that of taxation. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Article 1, Section 7. This means that taxes come directly from the representatives of the people, avoiding the charge made against King George of imposing taxes upon us without our consent. However, there is more to this power than simply taxation with representation. It is an extremely important power in other ways, as James Madison writes in the Federalist Papers. The House of Representatives can not only refuse, but they alone can propose the supplies requisite for the support of government. They, in a word, hold the purse. This power over the purse may, in fact, be regarded as the most complete and effectual weapon with which any constitution can arm the immediate representatives of the people for obtaining a redress of every grievance and for carrying into effect every just and salutary measure. The reason for this is simple. Government actions require money. If the President desires to do something, he must appeal to the House for the funds to do so. If we desire to regain constitutionally limited government, this power will be the key to our success. By means of this power, which the House of Representatives holds, all unconstitutional government actions could be stopped tomorrow. How? If their funding is stopped, those unconstitutional actions will have to be stopped as well. Thank you for joining us for this overview of the legislative branch under the Constitution. In our next video, we will discuss the executive branch. We hope you will join us for Part 3, The President of the United States, in the Save the Constitution series produced by Robert Welch University.